episódio 6 do zero até o destino, postando conteúdos todos os dias até eu alcançar o meu público. Meu diário da liberdade. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the episode 6. Welcome back to our little podcast, or to our little real chat, where I get to sit in my couch and tell you stories and answer the questions that I get often. In the last episode, I told you how I learned English. How did I learn English? A little bit of my story. So I'm gonna keep on with the story of how I became a teacher, right? How did I went from student to teacher? I actually told you in the last episode that I've been learning languages for a decade, almost 10 years now. And I've been teaching for 5 years. So I've been a teacher for 5 years now, which means half of it. And so how was for me to actually study in 5 years, become fluent, and in the other 5 years to as well be a teacher, right? How could I manage that? I did have a lot of abilities. I do have a gift for learning. However, it was not only the gift. Like I told you, I study a lot. Okay, so the two most important things for me to develop to become a teacher was number one, the amount of effort that I always put on things, my effort, my determination. That is honestly one of the most important things of this story. You can take something from my stories. It's always going to be obstination. It's always going to be determination. It's always going to be like, I don't stop. I don't give up. I don't stop when I'm tired. I stop when I'm done. I actually figured out that I'm actually a mentor, that I'm a mentor for life because I was already fluent in English. I didn't really want it to be a teacher in the first place. I really wanted to leave my job at that time and I wanted to have the office because my dream was always to be an entrepreneur, businesswoman in the corporate world, running a business, doing something related to that. But I really didn't thought about doing that in the education field or even like teaching a subject. But then that was so crazy because I feel like even when I was a kid, my soul, my heart always knew that I was a professor, that I was a mentor since the day I was born. I totally forgot what I wanted to do when I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, I remember that I would teach the kids from my school, from my street. So I had like maybe 2 or 3 kids that we would play. I was older than them, maybe like 5 years older, I don't know. But we would play and I would take a whiteboard and I would literally teach them, like play games, I would teach them. And so since an early age, I was always the teacher. I was always the one who like would pass wisdom. And also my sisters just told me that I was always that wise kid, that kid who was always being smart and intellectual and who really like it's adulting early. And so I was always that kind of wise girl. And so it was natural for me. But when I grew up, I was like, nah, I don't want to be a teacher. I don't want to be teaching grammar. I don't want none of this stuff. I actually want to do something more exciting. And I start actually baking cakes or doing things like that, or like maybe being a chef because cooking is something that I really love. And that's a story for another episode. But then I was like, but that didn't work out at that time. And so I really wanted to leave that job. I saw that working for other people was not my jam, was not my cup of tea. And so I decided to quit that job. And that was the crazy shit but I decided to quit that job and to pursue my dream of working at home, was having a home office job. And again, nobody believed in me. They're like, you're crazy, you're quitting your job, you have bills to pay, you're not gonna be able to do that, no one is hiring, don't do this. And it's something that I always said. And then I have this quote that it really follows me in all of my seasons, which is, are you ready to be called a freak? Because if you're not, then you're not ready to pursue what you want. Are you ready to be called a freak? Are you ready to be called crazy, to be called freak? Because when you're going to chase that wild dream that you have, people are gonna call you crazy. And in my life, I knew that an indicator that I was in the right path, on the right path, was being called crazy, being called freak. Because my dreams are bigger enough for people to look at me and say, you're a freak, you're crazy. But then I actually was. And then I wanted to become a translator, which is also another story for another time. I really learned that skill on like a very short period of time. And so I really studied a lot because I really needed to get another job really fast because I was going to be without emergency fund. Send a bunch of resumes, and then LinkedIn recommended me a bunch of English teacher vacancies. Companies at that time was really hiring teachers. They really need a need. So they're like, we need teachers ASAP. I do not want to be a teacher, but how hard can be? I mean, I'm gonna start with basic students. How hard can be? I thought. And I was like, why not? 5 years later. Well, but that's actually a good thing. I'm very proud, very honored to be a teacher, to be able to mentor people, to be able to help other people in their learning process. And I know that being a teacher, being a professor, it's much more than that. It's a lot. I was already doing the interviews, the trainings, and I got my first two students in the same month, all in the same month. And it was incredible. On my like first 6 months, I've grew a lot. I upscaled a lot. Few period of time, my agenda was all booked, all full. It was it was an amazing experience. And it still is. Well, there's so much more to tell. When I got to sit here and tell my story, I feel like there's so much more to keep telling you. And so we're gonna need more episodes for that. Ok, esse é o episódio 6.